Hi there, Philip from MindCode here. In this video, I'll be explaining getServerSideProps data fetching function of Next.js. So without any further waiting, let's start, and I'm highly encouraging you to code with me. If you would like to run the same project as I am running on localhost 3000, simply go to my GitHub repository called content-manager-YouTube. You can find the link in the description. Click here code, you can either download or you can clone this GitHub repository. After it's cloned, just install dependencies and in the project folder, run npm run dev, and this will run this application and the localhost 3000. All right, so now you can start open your conjugators if you have this project. If you know, you can just watch what I'm doing. Okay, so we'll go into our index.js in the pages folder. This is just a simple Next.js page. It's called homepage, where we have a layout and we are expecting to receive here resources data. These data are coming to the props of the home. These props are getting filled up from a getServerSideProps function. I will remove it because we want to write it from scratch. In the Next.js, you have two types of a function. You have a getStaticProps. I'll be talking about this later. Let's focus on the getServerSideProps. So you have a getStaticProps, getServerSideProps. We'll be talking about the getServerSideProps now. So first thing, as you would like to define here getServerSideProps, you will write here export function, and you have to call it getServerSideProps. Okay, getServerSideProps. This function will be executed on the server as you are making the request to access the page. I will show you the practical example later. Very important part here, what you need to meet here is that this function has to be called getServerSideProps, and this function has to return some props to your page. You need to return here object where you will specify the data you want to return. But first you need to specify that you want to return here props. Props of what we are expecting to receive to our page is resources. So we need to specify here that we want to return resources where we want to provide some data. For this case, empty array. Okay, my components actually, they don't expect to receive here empty arrays. We need to get here actual data. For this reason, I have created simple API that's residing in the resources API folder, which should fetch data. Okay, so we'll be fetching a data, but you can make here any arbitrary request to the server. You can make here any arbitrary request to the API. You can use fetch function. You can use Axios function. Whatever is making the request to the server, you can use here. What's executed here in a getServerSideProps is executed on the server, so you can write here server-side code. Okay, so let's get here some data. So I'll write here const response. And I will use here my API, so I'll write here API and I get fetch resources, and there's async await. This is returning promise, so I need to synchronize it with the await, and I will write here export async function. I'll get the response. From the response, I can get my JSON data, so I'll write here data. We can get, again, this returning promise or response.json, and we will get here data as the resources. This will get you resources on the server. Pass them to the props filled up in your page, and you can access your data. Okay, let's save this. Let's go back to browsers, and you can see now we are getting all of this data. To verify this data we are getting on the server, we can go to terminals, actually to our coordinators first, and we can simply console log here data. Anything what's happening on the server will be executed in the terminal. Anything what's happening on the browser in the client is executed in the browser. So when I will save this like this, I will go to browser. I will refresh. I'll go to terminal. You should see here the data here, not in the browser. These data are getting pre-filled on the server, so in the browser I don't have here anything. Okay, so let's write some key points about getServerSideProps. Okay, getServerSideProps is executed on the server. It's executed on the server. Okay, that's the first key point. Okay, I should also mention here is executed every time a user is making a request to access the page. Okay, so this is a function that will be executed every time before you will send the HTML document back to your browser. So, for example, when I will go to my browser, all right, and I am currently having getServerSideProps on my home page. So when I will go to development tools, I will see the network tab here. I will refresh here. You can see here from the local host, here we are getting here HTML document. Before we will receive this HTML document, you can imagine on the server, we are getting called this getServerSideProps. We are getting a data. The page is constructed on the server. HTML is the constructed on the server, and it's sent back to the browsers. So we have a structure like this. Okay, so we have a client. You can see is a client. Is our browser. That's our browser environment we are currently in. The user is making the request. The request is going to localhost 3000 in this case. That's our server. That there is running our development server, our Next.js application. So we are making requests to the server. All right, server is processing this request, and it sees that we are accessing the home page, and the home page has a getServerSideProps. So getServerSideProps is executed. So getServerSideProps, I will just call it GCR for a getServerSide, or GCP for a getServerSideProps is called. This will construct index.html. This will construct HTML document, and HTML document is sent back to the client to the browser. Okay, so we are getting here this HTML, index.html, and that's what you can see rendered on the screen. So getServerSideProps function is not even part of your JavaScript that's sent back to your clients. Okay? Okay, so if I will search here, I will actually comment getServerSideProps is not part of client JavaScript. Okay, so if I will search here for a JavaScript, it's sent back to the browser. So I will inspect the tab here, right-click here, inspect. Let's go to sources. When I will inspect here JavaScript, that should be chunks and pages, and that should be index.js, should be our JavaScript here, but sent back to our browsers as an index page. All right, actually, I will write here some console log so we can find it easier. Console log, let's say unique message. All right, unique message. I'll copy this. I will go back to browser. I'll refresh it so we will get the new data here. I will inspect again statics, chunks, pages, index.js. I will search here for unique message. You can see the unique message is not part of our JavaScript code because this is happening on the server, not in the JavaScript that's sent back to our browser environment. I can search it in all of our JavaScript files. I will be not able to find it. Okay. All right, so that's another key point. Okay, so I should write there. getServerSideProps is not a part of the client JavaScript that's sent to the browser. Okay, so we have covered is executed on the server, executed every time user making request. getServerSideProps is not part of the client JavaScript that's sent to the browser. You will use getServerSideProps mainly for the pages that has to have always the fresh data. Okay, so if you're expecting to receive always some fresh data from the server, it's very recommended to use getServerSideProps, or maybe you want to specify your page depending on the user request. So depending on the user location, for example, maybe on some user metadata from the browser, depending on this data, you would like to always render the different page. So you would like to construct this page on the server depending on the data you are sending in the request to the server. Okay, so getServerSideProps is used when you always have to have fresh data from the server, or you want to render their page depending on the user request. Okay, so that's all of this, what I would like to say about the getServerSideProps. Also, the other thing here that I would like to show you that it's really executed every time on the server as you're making the request. So I'll write here some just random function which will generate random numbers. Okay, so const num. I'll write here mavrandom. All right, mavrandoms times 7. So we'll get here some random number, and I will just return this number here to the props. So this will get me here in the page, and my page will be generated with this number. And I will just simply write here in the layout, let's say h1 number. I will save this. All right, and I will go back to browser, and you can see here every time I refresh, I have here different number. So you can see here every time I'm making the request, the different number is generated that, and it's generated on the server, not on the client. We are already getting here this HTML document with pre-rendered data. Okay, as other thing here, we can create also production build of our application. So just to verify this assumption, because the development build works differently as a production, development build is getting rebuilt every time as we are doing changes in the files. So we can write here npm run build to create a production build. This will create basically the structure of the folder structure you can see in your browser when you are accessing your page. So when you will write here now npm start, this will run actually production server from your build. Has been generated. You can actually see it in your Visual Studio Code or folder structure under the next folder. You have here this server folder. So that's all the files that are getting served to your browser. You can see here all these HTML files about HTML and the pages that serve to the browser. Now, when you will go to localhost 3000, you can see every time I'm making refresh, we are getting here different data. All right, guys, so that should be the nutshell for about the getServerSideProps. In the next video, I'll be covering getStaticProps, so you can really compare the differences between these two functions. I hope to see you in some of other Encode videos. If you like this video, press the like button. I hope to see you in the next videos, guys. Cheers!